Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brianna and this is For a Pause in a Book. I make book and lifestyle related content, so if that's something that you're interested in, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Today it is another episode of Can I Trust My BookTube Friends? Today we will be seeing if I can trust Margaret from TheWordN3rd. Margaret is one of my oldest friends on BookTube. I met her in 2019 at BookCon, and that's about when things started kicking off as far as a friendship. After that, she hosts a Vaultathon and I was a co-host for that. And then we've done so many things together. We are two of the five of the Avengers co-host. We've done a lot of things. We've done a lot of things. She's done Veda with us. She's very easily influenced. Is that what it is? Basically, I say, hey, let's do a thing, and she does the thing with me. So we've been very close friends for a very long time, and I am so grateful for her friendship. She was one of the people at my wedding, so that tells you a lot. However, when it comes to our reading taste, we are not super similar on a lot of books. Some books we 100% are, but then others not at all. I feel like I have a really good read on what her reading tastes are, and a lot of times I'll read a book and I'm like, this is 100% a Margaret book, and then she reads it and I'm right. And those text messages are often allude to. However, when it comes to me reading her favorite books, I haven't done that as much, so we're going to be doing that. I have picked a few books that she has inadvertently influenced me to buy. So the purpose of this series is not necessarily that I'm reading her favorite books per se, but they are books that she has talked about in wrap-ups, in vlogs, whatever, that based on the buzzwords, based on the things that she was saying about those books, I picked them up. And the goal of these videos is to basically see if what she's talking about and the buzzwords that she's talking about are actually, in fact, my buzzwords, and should I be trusting her recommendations. Now, Margaret is one of those people that probably reads more variety than even I do. I always like to call myself an omnivore reader, but I think that Margaret probably does that even better than I do, because I tend to fall into the fantasy and or romance genre, and she reads everything. So I've picked a lot of a wide variety of genres. Some books that we have a similar taste to in the past. We both really enjoyed The Poppy War. We've both really enjoyed Legendborn, which was actually our first group book that we did for the Avengers Initiative Reading Challenge way back in January of 2021. Firekeeper's Daughter was another book that we really liked. So a lot of them, especially that have a lot of diversity, we both really enjoy. So that was something that I made sure that I picked in these books. Margaret reads a lot more nonfiction than I do. I don't read nonfiction. Hardly ever. I always strive to, and then it never ends up happening. So another thing that we're going to be trying to do in this video. So let's talk about the books that I'm going to be reading for this project. I have 4 books that I had picked for her, and that is because I've been working on this video for months, and I read a book that is a HarperCollins imprint, and since they are now on strike, I'm not going to be talking about that book. So I picked another one. So here we are. First up, we're going to be talking about I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness by Austin Channing Brown. This is a nonfiction book that Margaret read last year, and she spent an entire reading vlog just reading quotes from this book. And I was absolutely enamored by it. I was very intrigued. And this is a nonfiction about a Black woman who is just trying to live in a world made for white people. And it specifically deals with the evangelical church and how the church is very inadvertently racist. Maybe not so inadvertently. Maybe directly. I don't know. And growing up in the evangelical church, that's definitely something that I've seen, that I've noticed, especially now being out of the church. So this one I'm really excited for. Then I will be reading A Half-Built Garden by Rosanna Emira's. Now this is a sci-fi climate fiction book, and this is a book that Margaret was reading on sprints with Cal and I, and during those sprints she was like, oh, you guys need to pick this up, this is so good. It has a lot of queer representation in it, and a lot of conversation about the earth and preservation and things like that. So not only just the preservation of the earth, but also of humanity in general. Margaret does read a lot of science fiction, specifically Leviathan Wakes is one of her favorite all-time series. I have read the first book in that series because of her. Leviathan Wakes, is that the right? I think that's right, the first one. I just haven't continued on that series because that is a very scary series. There's like 9 books in it that are all 500 plus pages, but I have read that and I did really enjoy it. It wasn't a perfect book for me, but I enjoyed it, and I think that the series does get better as we go along. And then the last original pick that I had was Other Words for Home by Jasmine Warga. Margaret reads a lot of middle grade fiction, and so this was, I thought, was a really good opportunity to pick this one up. I think this was a group book that she had picked for Vaultathon maybe, or it was a book that she had read, I can't remember, but it's been a while since she has read it, but it's one that she consistently would recommend in like Avengers recommendations, and like, you know, if someone's just looking for middle grade, this was always at the top of the list, and so I wanted to pick it up. Unfortunately, it is a boutique imprint of HarperCollins, so I'm not going to be adding any of the footage from when I read this book into this vlog, but I wanted to at least tell you that like Margaret does read some middle grade fiction and does recommend it quite a bit. One of the added benefits of this video series, especially when I am working with content creators that are smaller, is that not only am I trying to find out if the recommendations are like working for me and if I'm picking the right books up that they recommend, but I'm also showing you as my viewers who these content creators are and who, like, what they read and what they recommend, and so that hopefully then you can check out their channels. Obviously, Margaret's channel is going to be linked in the description below, so definitely check her out if you haven't already. Because I wanted to swap it out because all of these videos have 3 books in them. I picked up Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. I think this is a book that she had read last year and really, really enjoyed it. Obviously, like, this is more of a serious contemporary fiction story, so enjoy is maybe not the right word, but respect and appreciate. This is about a Black woman who is a babysitter for a white family. She has to take the baby out, like, later at night, takes her to the grocery store, and then, like, gets harassed by cops, saying, like, oh, this isn't your child. This is, like, you didn't really believe her that she was the nanny. And then it's, like, basically the white mother trying to, like, overcompensate for that conflict, that thing that happened. So there's a lot of performative activism in here, and it's just a really good social commentary about this and about like, you know, maybe what we're doing as white people that are not great. So as you can see with all of these books, they all have a really strong social commentary, which I think is probably the theme of Margaret's channel and Margaret's reading taste in general. The majority of the things that she reads is always going to make you question something, make you talk about something. And for that, like, I appreciate her recommendations. So with that being said, let's get into the vlog portion of this video, and we'll see how we did. So we're starting our first book, which is I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness by Austin Channing Brown. This is a nonfiction memoir, and this is a book that Margaret, I think, spent like an entire vlog just reading quotes from, which immediately made me want to buy it, so that's working. I'm not going to be talking a whole lot right now. As you can tell, my mouth is pretty swollen, still recovering from dental surgery, but I'm really enjoying this. I am on to chapter 3, and here's the thing. I grew up in a very white church. I was raised in Southern California. I went to church in Southern California. Is very white. So a lot of these things where, like, she's saying, like, she didn't feel welcome, she didn't feel included, are like things that, like, I grew up with, and now, like, looking back on it, you're like, oh wow, that actually, like, even though you didn't notice it as a kid, that's just because I came from a very privileged place of being white. So that being said, it's eye-opening for sure. So I'm going to continue reading this. Hello, I'm here to talk to you about I'm Still Here by Austin Channing Brown. This is really hard for me because I don't generally rate nonfiction, specifically nonfiction about a specific person's life. If I was going to rate it, I would definitely have rated it 5 stars. I think this is very, very well done. It's very short, very concise, but, like, it really packs a punch. This is definitely a personal story. This is not a book that's, like, written for the masses. It's written for herself, for her son, for the people in her circle. We just have the pleasure of also reading it, which I really appreciated, and it's kind of like giving this, like, inner look into like her personal life and the microaggressions and the things that she's seeing, not just in her church, which this is what it was kind of focused on, is like how white evangelical churches are, but also like in the grander scheme of things, like talking about her workplace and stuff like that. And Margaret is one of those people that really knows her nonfiction. She doesn't read a lot of it, but when she does, they're very powerful books. They're very impactful, and definitely, like, Margaret is one of those people that I know that I can trust recommendations for nonfiction books, because I don't read nonfiction a lot. This might be like my second nonfiction all year, and it's December. I'm not a person that picks up nonfiction, so I'm really glad that I was able to pick this one up, and thank you so much for this recommendation. Let's move on to book 2. Good morning. We are on to book 2, which is going to be A Half-Built Garden by Ruth Anna Emrys. I am a little over 50 pages in, maybe like 75 pages in. I've been listening to it on the audio and physically reading it as well, but I will be continuing listening to the audiobook while I'm at work today, just because I am back at the office. So far, I'm kind of confused as to what is going on. This is, I mean, like, it's giving me, what is the book by Sylvain Neuvel? Sleeping Giants? It's kind of giving me those vibes, but then, like, also they're having dinner with aliens, and then, like, you know, make it obviously a little bit queer. They're very big on, like, pronouns and things like that, which I enjoy. I'm really glad that that's part of it, because sci-fi does not have enough of that, when in reality it should be the one genre that is, like, the best at it, right? Because it's the future. We can make it whatever we want, right? That being said, I'm just like, I'm confused as to what is going on. I'm confused about the world, and I don't think that we set it up really well. I just want like an info dump. I am not a person who hates info dumps, especially if it's giving me valuable information. Sorry, still can't talk because my mouth is still swollen. I'm not a person who hates info dumps when it's valuable information, because that like lets me understand what's going on going forward. And we haven't gotten that yet. So hopefully we get a little bit more, because right now I am a little bit lost. It just kind of like threw you into the action right at the very beginning, which I get, like, that's a choice. That's an idea. But I don't know what's going on. So we're going to try to finish it up today at work while I'm working. We'll see what happens. And I'll talk to you later. Hello. Yes, I got my hair. That's not important. We are here to talk about A Half-Built Garden by Ruth Anna Emrys. I finished this book last night, and unfortunately it's just not for me. I totally get why people like this. I totally understand, like, the appeal, and I understand why Margaret likes it. This is a very whimsical sci-fi. This is like Becky Chambers to an extreme. And I'm beginning to wonder if I don't like whimsy as much as I used to. That might be a really big, like, stretch to say, because I did like the new Becky Chambers book this year, and I did like whimsical fantasy. Maybe it's just that this one is not as well written. So let's talk about this. This book is a climate fiction, so it's really talking about, like, protecting the earth, saving the earth. Can we save the earth, or do we, do you just move on, right? And so there's a lot of conversation about that. I really like that. There's a ton of conversation about gender roles, gender stereotypes, a lot of conversations about pronouns, and just, this is a very queer book, and I do love that. So please do not get me wrong there. However, I do think that the plot of the book faltered because of how much conversation we had about gender roles. They were at so many different gatherings and meetings and things like that, where they just repeated the conversations about pronouns and about, like, what she, her means to us as humans versus the aliens. And at first it takes into consideration that, like, alien culture is the same as human culture, which struck me the wrong way. But then also it was, they were talking to different people about it. So, like, to the character, it didn't seem redundant. But because we had seen this happen with another group of characters, it felt redundant to us as the reader. and it really halted the plot. So we'd be going along and then like have a conversation about pronouns and like gender roles within the humans and what it means to be a female. And then we would go along and some more plot and then like the exact same conversation. And so it just felt very cyclical. There was also a lot of conversation about like mothering and nursing, and while I get that that's an important representation, it just like, it was so heavy-handed that I got lost in the plot, and I just like, it got to the point where I didn't care, unfortunately. So I'm giving this 2.5 stars. I understand the appeal for it. I understand why people like it. It just didn't work for me. Moving on to the last book in this project, and that is going to be Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. This book is not just inspired by Margaret, but I do remember like finally going, okay, yeah, no, that is a book that I would like after hearing Margaret talk about it. Prior to that, I think a lot of people made this seem like a lit fic book, which is not generally my cup of tea. But this is very much like a contemporary story. I'm about halfway through it. I do think that if you like luster, it has a very similar tone to that, in the fact that it's a young Black woman just trying to survive in a white world, right, essentially, and trying to navigate that and how to work around that. I'm finding it very interesting. I'm finding both of the women very interesting. I found myself kind of chuckling at a few things, and it's just a very interesting book. Am I like relating to it on a personal level? Maybe not, but it's a very interesting commentary. So I will come back to you when I am finished with this. Hello everybody, I have finished Such a Fun Age. I'm gonna give it 3 stars, but not for the reason why I think some white people give it 3 stars. Like I think that the pacing was just off, and I think it is a debut, so that makes sense. But I really liked the beginning of it, but then once we introduced the Kelly character, it just kind of went off the rails, and it just became this like drama fest, and we lost a lot of the important commentary that we were actually discussing. So for me, it's only a 3 star, but it's still like, it was still a good book. I still would recommend the book, especially for someone who likes contemporary fiction. I will stand by the fact that I think it has a lot of the same vibes of Luster. I think it also has a lot of the same vibes of The Vanishing Half, but I do think The Vanishing Half does that story better, and that commentary better. If you liked those books, I would pick this one up. I still think it would be good. So with that, this experiment is over. What did we learn? Nonfiction, Margaret has fantastic recommendations, and I will 100% trust anything where she is talking about nonfiction. I think that I will probably also like it. Secondly, although I did not talk about it, I really enjoyed the middle grade book, and so I do think that her middle grade recommendations are pretty great. I already knew that though, because we've talked about other middle grade books. And I don't think that the 2 books that I didn't enjoy were like bad recommendations, or that like I shouldn't trust her sci-fi and or contemporary recommendations. It's just something that like I have to be a little bit more aware of, in the fact that like Margaret really likes the cozy vibes and things like that. And so it makes sense that she really liked A Half-Built Garden. I like a little bit more, specifically in sci-fi. Fantasy, I can do a little bit more cozy, but I think with sci-fi, I like a hard and fast rules. I like a little bit more like technology-based, I don't know, like just something a little bit more rooted in science, or like, I don't want to say reality because it's not reality, it's science fiction, but just like makes a little more analytical, I guess. I don't know. And then with Such a Fun Age, obviously like that wasn't even the initial pick, that wasn't the original, like in the original group of books that I was going to be reading. Contemporary fiction is just not a genre that I really enjoy, specifically when it leans more lit fic. I like, when I'm reading a contemporary story, like I'm automatically looking for the romance and the happily ever after. And obviously like contemporary lit fic stories don't always have that. There might be a romance in it, but that's not the main point of the story. So I'm not faulting Margaret for that. I'm not faulting Margaret for anything. Anyways, That's all I have for you today. Go ahead and check out Margaret's channel down below. It's going to be linked down below. Also, go over there today and wish her a happy birthday, because today is her birthday. And yes, I have been working on this video for months for it to come out on her birthday. She has been slated for this slot of Can I Trust My BookTube Friends since the series started. So happy birthday, Margaret. I love you. I'm so glad we're friends. That is all I have for you today. If you're new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little red button that you can do so down below the video. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Instagram, Goodreads, and Twitter, and my Patreon are linked in the description below. That outro sounded funny. Oh well, sorry. Thanks for watching. Bye.